My name is Renata Osei. I'm 61 years old, and for 34 years I built my career finding the exact dollar where a lie starts. I'm a forensic accountant. I read numbers the way other people read faces, and numbers, unlike faces, never lie to be polite. That Thursday, I had 2 sentences ready in my mouth, sentences I'd practiced in the shower that morning, until they sounded like nothing at all, like small talk. I was about to say them to my son's wife over dessert, in front of her whole family, and I knew exactly what they would do to her. What I didn't know, what none of us at that table knew yet, was that 15 minutes earlier, a bank 3 states away had already flagged an account with my name quietly attached to it. And by the time coffee was served, that flag was going to reach the one guest at the table who mattered most. Welcome back to MJ Revenge Stories, where every story starts with silence and ends with power. If you've ever been the difficult one in your family simply for asking where the money went, this one's for you. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. It started 3 weeks earlier, with a phone call I almost didn't answer. 2. Character Foundation. I spent 3 decades as a forensic accountant for a regional firm in Columbus. The kind of job nobody understands at parties until you say, I find out where the missing money went, and then everyone gets very quiet and very interested. I traced embezzlement inside a school district. I unwound a Ponzi scheme run out of a church basement. I once found $340,000 hidden across 11 shell accounts for a divorce case, and the husband's lawyer still sends me a fruit basket every December, which I've always found darkly funny. I retired 18 months ago, not because I got tired of the work, but because my husband, Elias, passed 2 years before that, and the quiet in our house had started to feel less like peace, and more like a held breath. I sold our old 4-bedroom in Bexley and moved into a smaller brick colonial closer to my sister, Dolores. I kept my CPA license active out of habit. I still balance my own checkbook by hand, in pencil, in a green ledger, even though my accountant, me, knows that's unnecessary in the age of banking apps. It's not about need. It's about the feeling of watching a number prove itself line by line. My son, Marcus, is 34. He's a good man underneath a lot of noise, sweet as a boy, easily led as an adult. He married Priya 4 years ago. Priya is sharp, ambitious, and has never once in 4 years asked me a single question about my life that wasn't, eventually, about money. I didn't hate her for it at first. I understood it even. She grew up with less than she wanted and married into what she assumed was more. I was patient. I told myself patience was a virtue. I would learn, that Thursday, exactly how expensive that virtue had become. 3. Inciting incident. The call came on a Tuesday at 6:40 p.m., while I was rinsing spinach for dinner. Mom. Marcus's voice had that particular brightness he uses when he's about to ask for something. So, funny story. I'd ever run into someone at the bank who mentioned the Bexley house sale. That's incredible, Mom. You didn't tell us it went for that much. I turned off the tap. It went for what it was worth, Marcus. Right, no, that's great, that's really great. A pause, the kind that costs money to hold. We were actually thinking, Priya's whole family is doing a thing this weekend. A little dinner, nothing big, just the 4 of us plus her parents, and we thought it'd be so nice if you came. We miss you. We miss you. It was the same 3 words Priya had said to me at Christmas, right after asking whether I'd considered a family trust structure. The same 3 words she'd said in March, in the same breath as a question about my investment advisor's name. 3 words, soft as a pillow. And every single time they landed, something got asked for underneath them. We miss you. I stood in my kitchen holding a colander of wet spinach and felt the old, familiar tug, not suspicion first, but hope. Hope arrived before caution always did with me when it came to Marcus. That's the part I've never been proud of. What time Saturday? I asked. 4. Backstory, why the rift happened. The rift, if you want the real shape of it, started 2 years and 4 months ago, 6 weeks after Elias's funeral. Marcus and Priya had been renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Dublin, Ohio, for $1,650 a month. And Priya wanted a house. Not any house, a 4,200 square foot new build, in a development called Wickfield Meadows, listed at $612,000, with a $58,000 down payment required to make the numbers work with their combined income. Marcus asked me to co-sign. I said no. I want to be precise about why. because for a long time Priya told people, told Marcus's aunts, told her own mother, that I said no out of spite, or control, or because I never liked her. None of that was true. I said no because I had spent 34 years reading exactly this kind of paperwork professionally. And their debt-to-income ratio, even combined, put them $1,400 a month underwater on that mortgage before groceries, gas, or Priya's still outstanding $31,000 in graduate loans. I ran the numbers on my kitchen table, the same table where I was now rinsing spinach, and I showed Marcus the spreadsheet. I offered instead to help with a $15,000 gift toward a smaller, $340,000 home that actually fit their income. Something sustainable. Something that wouldn't collapse on them in a bad year. Priya called it an insult. She said $15,000 was nothing compared to what I clearly had. Marcus, caught between us, went quiet the way he always does, and that quiet was its own answer. 2 weeks later I got a text from Priya. We're not really feeling the family thing right now. We need some space to build our own life without so much judgment. I didn't hear from either of them again for 4 months. I missed Marcus's 32nd birthday. I spent that Christmas, my first without Elias, alone, with a lasagna I made for 4 and ate for a week. Here is the part I don't say out loud very often, even to Dolores. It wasn't the house, or the money, or even the principle of the thing that kept me up at night during those 4 silent months. It was that I was newly widowed and newly childless, feeling in a house that used to hold 3 voices, and some nights I would have signed anything just to hear Marcus call me Mom again on a Sunday. I never told him that. I'm not sure I even fully admitted it to myself until this story started. Pride is a strange insulation. It keeps you warm, and it keeps you alone, both at once. So when Marcus called about the dinner, some old, soft, unguarded part of me, the part that still set 2 plates out of habit some nights, said yes before the accountant in me finished running the numbers. 5. Internal conflict. I told Dolores about the dinner over coffee the next morning. My sister has never trusted Priya, not once, not from the wedding toast onward. They didn't call you for 4 months, Ren, Dolores said, stirring her coffee harder than the coffee required. Then the house sells and suddenly it's we miss you. Come on. You taught forensic accounting to half of Franklin County. Don't tell me you can't see a pattern when it's sitting in your own kitchen. It's dinner, Dolores. Not a merger. It's never just dinner with that girl. She set her spoon down. You go in there with your eyes open, or you don't go at all. I told her I'd go in with my eyes open. I told myself the same thing, twice, in the car on the way there. I want to be honest with you. The way I'd want a client to be honest with me, I didn't fully believe it. Some part of me had already decided to be pleased no matter what I found on the other side of that door. That's the risk with hope. It doesn't ask permission before it puts its coat on. I drove to Priya's parents' house Saturday evening with a bottle of Malbec in the passenger seat, and my guard exactly as low as I'd promised myself it wouldn't be. 6. Rising microhook in the story came before I even parked. There were 6 cars in the driveway. 6. For just the 4 of us plus her parents. I sat in my car for a moment recounting. Priya's parents' silver Lexus. Marcus's truck. A blue Kia I didn't recognize. A black Audi I didn't recognize. A minivan with a Wickfield Meadows elementary parking pass hanging from the mirror. And a rideshare just pulling away having dropped someone off. 6 cars. Not 4 people. I walked in anyway because I'd already decided in the driveway to be pleased. Inside, it was not a small family dinner. It was a party of 14. Priya's parents, her 2 sisters and their husbands, her aunt visiting from Cincinnati, 3 cousins I'd never met. And, sitting at the head of the dining table like he'd been waiting for an audience, a man in a gray suit who Priya introduced only as Uncle Sanjay. He does financial planning. The dining table itself told its own story before anyone said a word. At one end sat 3 bottles of wine I recognized from the specialty shop on High Street. A Napa Cabernet that runs about $110 a bottle, easily $330 of wine for a small family dinner. At the other end, tucked half behind a centerpiece as if someone had tried to hide it, sat Priya's purse, a real leather bag. The strap cracked and repaired with a strip of packing tape gone yellow with age. Performed wealth on one end of the table. Quiet, actual strain on the other. I noticed it the way I used to notice a spreadsheet that didn't balance, not with judgment, just with the old professional itch of something here doesn't match its story. Renata. Priya's mother, Anjali, kissed both my cheeks like we did this every month. We're so glad you came. Sanjay's been dying to meet you, he's heard so much about your background. I glanced at Marcus. He gave me the smallest, guiltiest shrug I have ever seen a grown man give, and mouthed, I didn't know either. I sat down anyway. I'd come this far. 20 minutes in, Priya's sister Nina leaned across the table, wine in hand, and said brightly, So is it true you sold the Bexley house for almost 800? Priya said, You're basically sitting on a fortune now. Priya said, First brick. I kept my face pleasant. The house sold for a fair market price, I said. Nothing dramatic. Must be nice, Nina's husband Devesh said, not quite under his breath, to just have that kind of cushion at your age with no one depending on you. Second brick. I let it land without flinching and reached for my water instead of the wine. Uncle Sanjay cleared his throat theatrically. Renata, I understand you're recently retired. Have you thought about how you'd like your estate structured going forward? Priya mentioned you might be open to discussing a family investment vehicle. There it was. The reason for the gray suit, the reason for 6 cars. The reason for the sudden, warm, we miss you. This wasn't a dinner. It was a pitch meeting, and I was the only one at the table who hadn't been told. I said I'd rather enjoy my dinner first. And I watched Priya's jaw tighten in a way that told me she'd expected me to fold faster than that. Here's a moment you should keep in mind, because it matters later. As dessert was being cleared, I excused myself to the powder room. Back down the hallway, past a home office with the door left ajar, I heard Priya's voice low, on the phone, thinking she was alone. No. She came. She's being weird about it. But Sanjay's already got the paperwork drafted. We just need her account numbers for the verification step. That's literally all he needs. A pause. I know. Just get me the routing number tonight if she leaves her phone unlocked, or we do it the long way with the notarized letter, whatever. We're not walking away from this after everything we put up with her for 4 years. I stood very still in that hallway. 34 years of forensic work has taught me a great deal about the particular sound of someone building a case against you, while smiling at you across a table. I had just heard it, Liv, in my daughter-in-law's voice, about me. Everything we put up with her for 4 years. I let that sentence sit inside me like a stone dropped into still water, waiting to see how wide the rings would spread. I went back to the table and ate my tiramisu. 20 minutes later, over coffee, Priya's aunt from Cincinnati leaned over and said, Not unkindly, but not kindly either. You know, family should really take care of family. It's not good, at your age, to be so, closed off. Third brick, delivered with a smile, the cruelest kind. And then, right on cue, Priya reached across the table and put her hand over mine, in front of all 14 people, and said the exact phrase, word for word, that Marcus had used on the phone 3 weeks earlier, the one I'd started hearing in my sleep. Mom, we just miss you. We want you back in our life. Really. Stay with me here, because what I did next, I decided in less time than it takes to stir a cup of coffee. I smiled at her. I let her have the moment. I said, softly, I've missed you too, sweetheart. And I watched something in her shoulders relax, the way a fish relaxes, right before it realizes the hook is already set. A week left before the follow-up dinner they were already planning, the one where, Anjali mentioned casually, Sanjay would love to just walk you through the paperwork. Nothing binding, just informational. A long time for a woman who spent 34 years finding exactly where the missing money went. 7. The direct demand confrontation, the follow-up dinner, happened 8 days later. This time at Marcus and Priya's own house. Smaller, only 9 of us, which somehow felt more dangerous, not less. Sanjay arrived with a leather folio. Anjali arrived with a fruit tart. Priya arrived already anxious, refilling water glasses no one had asked her to refill. We made it through the meal on pleasantries. Then Sanjay opened the folio on the dining table, right next to the dessert plates, and slid a single document toward me. This is very simple, he said, in the tone people use right before something is not simple. A revocable family trust. You'd remain trustee for now, of course, but Marcus and Priya would be named as co-trustees with account visibility, purely so that if anything ever happened to you, God forbid, there's no delay, no probate mess. We just need your account and routing information today to properly title the trust assets. 9 people at that table went quiet, watching me the way you watch someone opening a letter. Priya leaned forward. And there it was, the third time, delivered exactly as I'd expected it, sharp under the softness now, no longer a request. Mom. We just miss you. Sign the paperwork. 4 words that could headline a video. Sign the paperwork, Mom. I let the silence sit. 1 second, 2, 3, 4, 5 full seconds. And I did not fill them. I watched Priya's confident expression start to flicker at second 3, the way people do when the silence goes on 1 beat longer than they scripted for. I watched Sanjay's pen hover, uncertain whether to offer it or hold it back. I watched Marcus stare at his plate like it might answer for him. 5 seconds is a very long time at a dinner table. I know, because I counted every one of them on purpose. Then I spoke quietly, the way I used to speak in depositions when I already knew the answer to the question I was asking. Before I sign anything, I said, I'd like to ask Sanjay one professional question. Just one. 8. The reveal turned. Sanjay smiled, magnanimous, certain of his footing. Of course. Anything. You called this a revocable family trust, I said. Can you tell the table which entity is actually named as the receiving account on the wire authorization form, the one stapled behind page 3, not the summary page you showed me? The table went very still. Sanjay's smile held for exactly 1 second too long. That's just standard fund transfer language, boilerplate. It doesn't. It names a checking account at Heartland Community Bank, I said. Under an LLC called Vantage Meadow Holdings. I looked it up on my phone in the powder room 8 minutes ago, while you were pouring the wine. Vantage Meadow Holdings was registered 6 weeks ago. Its registered agent is a P.O. box in Grove City. Its listed manager. I turned my phone around and set it on the table, screen up. The state business filing still open. Is Sanjay Malhotra. Nina made a small sound. Devesh set down his fork. That's an administrative entity. For the trust's operating account. It's completely standard practice. Sanjay tried again, reaching for the folio. His second attempt landing even worse than his first, his hand not quite steady now. Standard trusts, I said, still calm, still quiet. Don't route funds through a private LLC formed 6 weeks before the paperwork was presented, owned solely by the person presenting it. I spent 34 years finding exactly this pattern for a living, Sanjay. I've testified about smaller versions of it in 3 different courtrooms. He tried a third time, reaching for his phone now, saying something about needing to step outside and call his office, and that was the moment the room finally, fully turned. Not because I'd raised my voice. I hadn't raised it once. It turned because everyone at that table had just watched a confident man fail 3 times in a row, each attempt weaker than the last, in front of the same family that, 20 minutes earlier, had been pressuring a widow to sign her life over to him. Anjali's face had gone the color of the tablecloth. Priya, she said, very quietly. Did you know about this? Priya didn't answer. Her eyes were on me, and for the first time in 4 years, I saw something in them that wasn't calculation. It was fear. Real. Unrehearsed fear. The kind that shows up when you realize the person you underestimated has been 3 steps ahead the entire meal. I stood up. I didn't slam my chair back. I didn't throw the folio. I picked up my phone, closed the business filing, and slipped it back into my purse. I don't owe anyone at this table my accounts, my house, or my silence, I said. I never did. I came here twice because I love my son, and because for a while, I let myself hope that was the only reason I'd been invited back into this family. It wasn't. But I'm not angry that I hoped. I'm just done pretending I don't see what's in front of me. I looked at Marcus. He hadn't said a single word through any of it. I'll be at your sister's for coffee if you want to talk, I told him. Just you. Not the folio. Then I picked up my coat, thanked Anjali for the tart I hadn't touched, and let myself out. 9. Fallout plus double emotional resolution. The fallout arrived in pieces over the following month. Sanjay's financial planning business turned out to be exactly what I suspected. I filed a report with the Ohio Division of Financial Institutions the following Monday. Not out of vengeance, but because I knew, statistically, I wasn't going to be the only widow he tried this with that year. Anjali called me, not Priya, crying, to tell me that Sanjay had done the same thing to her own sister 18 months earlier, quietly, and the family had covered it up rather than confront him. My one professional question had cracked open a much older wound than mine. Priya and I didn't speak for 5 weeks. When she finally called, it wasn't the performance version of her voice. It was smaller. She admitted haltingly that Sanjay had approached her, not the other way around, promising a guaranteed return that would finally let them refinance out of the Wickfield Meadows house they'd bought anyway. 11 months after I said no. A house that was, by then, exactly as underwater as my spreadsheet had predicted 2 years earlier. She hadn't been trying to steal from me, she said. She'd been trying to save herself from a mistake she was too proud to admit she'd made. And she'd let panic turn me into a solution instead of a person. It wasn't a full apology. It was closer to a confession, which, in my experience, is worth more. I didn't forgive everything in that phone call. I told her that. But I told her something else too. Something I hadn't planned to say until it was already out of my mouth, that I understood panic making people reach for the wrong hand in the dark, because grief had made me do the same thing more than once since Elias died. That admission cost me something. I think it cost her something to hear it. The quieter moment came 3 days after that though, and it's the one I actually think about at night. I found, in a box I hadn't opened since the move, a card Elias had written me for our 30th anniversary, 4 months before he passed. In it, in his slow, careful handwriting, he'd written, "You've spent your whole career finding what people hide. Don't forget to let the ones who love you see what you hide too. Even you deserve an audit that comes back clean." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried for the first time since the funeral. Not about Priya. Not about Sanjay. Not about the money at all. About how long I'd spent protecting a ledger and how little time, some years, I'd spent protecting the softer, more honest columns underneath it. Marcus and I have coffee every other Sunday now, just the two of us, no folio, no 14-person table. Priya joined us twice. We're rebuilding slowly, the way you rebuild anything real, line by line, checked twice, no shortcuts trusted. I spent 34 years finding where the missing money went. It took my own family to teach me that the most important audit isn't the one you run on other people's accounts. It's the one you finally run on your own hope, to see what it's quietly been costing you. That's my story. If it meant something to you, drop a comment and tell me. I read every one. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe to MJ Revenge Stories, because there's another one waiting for you next week.